Tariffs versus income taxes. Will President Trump's 2025 economic plan actually work? What are the real impacts of tariffs versus those of income taxes? Some believe tariffs can replace income taxes, relieving financial burdens on workers, while others argue they'll harm both U.S. businesses and consumers. With President Trump's proposed plan, the debate is intensifying. Will tariffs replace taxes? And what does this mean for you? How should a government fund itself? Throughout U.S. history, the two dominant methods of raising revenue have been either tariffs or income taxes. Tariffs are taxes on goods imported from other countries. Income taxes directly tax the earnings of individuals and businesses in the U.S. While tariffs once served as the primary revenue source for the federal government, the introduction of the income tax in 1913 fundamentally changed the way America finances its programs and overall operations. Today, many argue that a return to a tariff-based economy would reduce the tax burden on workers and businesses, while also encouraging domestic manufacturing. Supporters believe tariffs can make America more self-sufficient by reducing reliance on foreign imports. On the other hand, critics warn that tariffs would raise consumer prices, disrupt international trade, and harm industries dependent on global supply chains. With President Trump's new economic plan including a much heavier reliance on tariffs, it's important to understand the debate. Are tariffs a better alternative to income taxes? Or would they create new economic challenges? To answer that, we need to explore how both taxation models have shaped the country, their advantages and disadvantages, and what a tariff-heavy system might mean for the future of the U.S. economy. What was America's first tax system? Before the introduction of income taxes, tariffs were the main source of federal revenue. From 1789 until 1913, the government relied on taxing imported goods to fund infrastructure, military expenses, and public services. Tariffs were initially promoted as a means of protecting American industries. Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, believed that tariffs would reduce dependence on foreign goods, encourage domestic production, and strengthen national security. By making imported products more expensive, domestic manufacturers had a competitive edge, allowing local industries to flourish. However, tariffs also created deep regional divides. The industrialized North benefited from protectionist policies, while the agrarian South, which relied on imported goods and exported raw materials, saw tariffs as an unfair economic burden. The 1828 Tariff of Abominations worsened tensions, contributing to the growing sectionalism that would eventually lead to the Civil War. Despite these disputes, tariffs remained America's primary funding source for over a century. But as industrialization and economic complexity grew, so did the need for a more flexible taxation system. The shift from tariffs to income taxes was not just a policy change. It was a turning point in American economic history. Why did the U.S. abandon tariffs as its primary revenue source? By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, tariffs became less effective as international trade grew and economic inequality became a bigger concern. This led to the introduction of the income tax. The first attempt at income taxation came during the Civil War, in order to fund military expenses. But it wasn't until the passage of the 16th Amendment in 1913 that income taxes became a permanent source of government funding. The shift to an income tax system allowed the government to generate revenue directly from earnings, rather than relying solely on trade restrictions. One of the strongest arguments for income taxes was fairness. Tariffs disproportionately affected lower-income individuals as they increased the cost of essential goods. By contrast, an income tax system could be structured progressively, ensuring that those who earned more contributed a greater share. Income taxes also provided the government with the flexibility to fund new initiatives, including Social Security, infrastructure projects, and national defense. While controversial, this system gave policymakers more control over revenue collection and economic management. But does this mean tariffs should be abandoned altogether? Could tariffs replace income taxes again? Advocates for a tariff-based system argue that it's a viable and beneficial alternative. President Trump's 2025 economic plan suggests increasing tariffs to reduce the financial burden on American workers. Supporters claim that tariffs would help rebuild domestic manufacturing by discouraging reliance on cheap imports. Countries like China, they argue, have unfairly undercut American industries, and that tariffs would level the playing field by making US-made products more competitive. Tariffs could also create jobs by encouraging companies to produce goods domestically rather than outsourcing labor overseas. The Buy American, Hire American philosophy is central to the argument that tariffs could revitalize industries that have declined due to globalization. However, replacing income taxes with tariffs entirely would require a massive increase in import duties. Given that income taxes currently account for more than half of federal revenue, achieving this shift without economic disruption remains a major challenge. Would a tariff-based system work? Or would it backfire? Critics warn that heavy reliance on tariffs could lead to economic instability and unintended consequences. While tariffs may protect domestic jobs and industries, they also bring financial risks that could affect both businesses and consumers. One of the biggest concerns is higher consumer prices. Tariffs function as a tax on imports, meaning companies that rely on foreign goods are forced to pay higher costs. These costs are often passed on to consumers. This would make everyday items like food, electronics, and automobiles more expensive. In past trade disputes, price increases were directly linked to tariff policies. This impacted low and middle-income families the hardest. Another major issue is trade retaliation. When the U.S. imposes tariffs, other countries often respond by raising their own tariffs on American exports. This can severely impact industries like agriculture, where farmers depend on selling their goods to foreign markets. The U.S.-China trade war from 2018 to 2019 saw billions in agricultural exports lost due to retaliatory tariffs. This left American farmers struggling with surplus crops and declining revenues. Finally, tariffs disrupt global supply chains. Many American businesses rely on international materials and manufacturing to remain competitive. Higher tariffs make it harder for these businesses to obtain affordable raw materials. This difficulty can lead to factory closures, job losses, and weakened economic growth. While tariffs aim to strengthen domestic industry, they can sometimes have the opposite effect. They can push companies to offshore production or to shut down entirely. Is there a way to balance tariffs and income taxes? Some economists propose a hybrid approach that blends both systems to create a more stable and fair revenue structure. This method would maintain a competitive edge for domestic industries. It would also avoid the economic risks of relying too heavily on either tariffs or income taxes. One way to achieve this balance is through targeted tariffs. Instead of applying tariffs broadly, the U.S. could impose selective tariffs on industries where domestic manufacturing is crucial, such as steel, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. This approach would protect key industries without disrupting global supply chains or significantly increasing consumer costs. Another solution is simplifying the income tax system while reducing overall tax rates. By implementing a lower flat tax or reforming deductions, the government could ease the tax burden on individuals and businesses without eliminating income taxes altogether. A streamlined system could encourage economic growth, while ensuring that high earners and corporations contribute their fair share. A hybrid system could also use border-adjusted taxation, where taxes are applied based on where goods are consumed rather than produced. This method is used in some European countries and could allow the U.S. to shift some taxation away from workers while keeping exports competitive. Could this be the best of both worlds? Has any country successfully run an economy primarily on tariffs? Throughout history, several nations have relied on tariffs as their main source of revenue, but the outcomes have varied significantly. The U.S. itself operated on a tariff-based system for over a century. But during the Industrial Revolution, the growing need for social programs and infrastructure made tariffs insufficient as a sole revenue source. While tariffs helped establish early American manufacturing, they also created sectional tensions that contributed to the Civil War. China has used selective tariffs and trade policies to protect its domestic industries while engaging in aggressive export strategies. By imposing tariffs on foreign goods while subsidizing domestic production, China has grown into an economic powerhouse. However, these policies have led to trade disputes and accusations of unfair competition. Other historical examples, such as Britain's mercantilist policies in the 17th and 18th centuries, showed that heavy reliance on tariffs can lead to trade imbalances and economic stagnation. Nations that prioritized self-sufficiency often struggled to keep up with global innovation, as limiting imports also limited access to new technologies and ideas. These cases illustrate that while tariffs can be an effective tool for economic growth and industry protection, relying on them too heavily has led to unintended consequences. A mixed strategy seems to be the most sustainable approach for long-term economic success. Which taxation system is best for the U.S.? The debate between tariffs and income taxes is not just a matter of policy. It reflects the country's broader economic priorities and political values. As the global economy continues to evolve, so too must the way nations fund their governments. History has shown that while tariffs were once a dominant source of revenue, they come with limitations, including higher consumer prices and the risk of trade retaliation. Income taxes, on the other hand, provide a more stable and scalable revenue system but place a direct financial burden on workers and businesses. A hybrid approach, one that carefully balances tariffs with a simplified income tax system, might offer the best solution. By using targeted tariffs to protect key industries while keeping income taxes fair and manageable, the U.S. could maintain economic stability while fostering long-term growth. As Trump's 2025 economic plan takes shape, the nation will once again grapple with these choices. Will tariffs make a comeback? Or will income taxes remain the foundation of the U.S. economy? The outcome will have lasting implications for generations. What do you think? Should the U.S. rely more on tariffs, stick with income taxes, or find a balance? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed this deep dive into tariffs and income taxes. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.